Yo, what up, YouTube? It's Mr.BuyTheDip back here with another video. I want to talk to you guys about how I grew my investments from 15 to 1,000, even more than 1,000. Let's just talk about NVIDIA. First things first, let's dive straight into it. The game is, this game of the stock market is very, very simple, and I'm going to break it down to you, give the game to you in a fun way, in bits and pieces, and it's going to, I'm going to join everything together and make it make sense. First things first, I started my investing journey with just $15. As you can see, I had $15 in a dream. December 19, 2023, $15 in NVIDIA. And notice how I have a pattern of consistently buying around the same date each month or around the same time. Okay, so $2, $1, $2. Look, I'm slowly adding money. Every time I invest, I slowly add money, whether it's $1, $10, $20. When I slowly grow my portfolio, I'm always adding money very, very, very consistently. And this is the exact thing you do with any stock. As you can see, the same thing I'm doing with NVIDIA is the same thing I did with AMD, and I sold this 23% up, by the way, last week. So when we talk about buying, you need to know when to buy the stock. Okay, if you don't know when to buy a stock, you can always be caught in a situation where you're chasing profits, right? You're chasing that feeling of getting that gain, but you enter the wrong time. The magic is when you enter a stock. Okay, as you can see, this is weekly up 5%, monthly we're up 15%. Yearly, we just turned positive yearly. We were in the negatives for a long time, and that is where I invested in the stock when the stock was actually a falling knife, literally. But I sat down and I said to myself, I think I want to take this risk, because if I think about another semiconductor company that can keep up with NVIDIA, sure, I think about Taiwan Semiconductor, sure, I think about other AI chips, but how much room do they have to grow? Taiwan Semiconductor is another good stock, but I want to see AMD. I know that they don't even have a dividend yield compared to Taiwan Semiconductor, but this would be a better buying opportunity significantly because of the price. I can definitely dabble in and get 2-3 shares rather than semiconductor being a higher, more, it costs more money to buy shares with semiconductor. And that's exactly what I did. And I slowly, consistently added money. Okay, as soon as I saw a nice run up, this was a nice gap up, I saw, like, all right, I'm adding money. Exactly there is when I add 60, then I slowly add 10 along the way. Okay, so start small, stay consistent, begin with any amount. If it's $15, if it's $10, if it's 50, 20, 30, whatever, you have to begin with what you're comfortable losing. At the time, $15 was all I can afford. It's all I could lose. All right, and $15 is nothing. Right. So when we say that we want to grow an account, you have to know what your passive income is. What kind of income are you pulling in every month? How much are you saving? How much are you investing? If I'm only investing $15, I mean, monthly I only earn about 130, 140, if that. And it's actually true. Okay, I did like this little workshop where I popped up and worked for this third party company, and they paid me about $110. I saved most of it for college, and then I was like, okay, I want to invest a little bit, and I invested the rest. That is what we call correct risk management. Okay, do not go in with a lot of money, because I'll tell you this: the magic in the stock market is knowing when to enter a stock, it's knowing when to exit a stock. And on top of that, it's knowing when to stay disciplined. If I was never disciplined with NVIDIA and happened to just add $1,000 and not knowing what I'm doing, I wouldn't have been able to survive when NVIDIA dropped down to April. That's why you have a lot of panic sells, because people think, oh my God, their money's literally going to go to zero because of these drops. But if you're familiar, right, with the stock market, and you know how these cycles happen almost every year, you see that big 10 to 12% drop off, you see it as a buying opportunity, you pick it up, you ride these waves. And I understood this was just a time to either hold your position or buy heavily. And it's either you bought heavily or you didn't, or you bought consistently. As you can see, $10, okay, $40. Then another sale was made when I saw a run up. I always buy at a small run up. I don't buy fully down to support. I see a small run up, then I'll buy. Okay, let us build that support level, have run up about 3-4%, so I can see that investors are still around the stock heavily, and they're trading it. People swing traded Nvidia probably like crazy. You could have took Nvidia from $94 a share to 134, 135, and made a nice chunk of your money back, right? So that is the name of the game: consistency, discipline, and knowing when to exit, when to enter a stock. Because the magic happens when you're entering a stock. Now, when we talk about prioritizing ETFs, strong stocks, focus on diversified ETFs, these are safer investments. Always make sure you have safer investments. If you look at my portfolio, I own the S&P 500 and I have not sold this. I'm up 10.28% on the year. And all I did was buy this throughout the year. $273 invested. And I invested last year, December, and I was very clear to myself. I made a goal that I was not going to sell this. I was just going to hold this. $50 purchase here. As we went down, look at this. 27, I'm just buying. So $10 here, then 10, then 10, then again, I get dividends, but I reinvest those dividends. So if you see on my history, right, I had my first purchase ever was right here with $50. And I bought this 6 months after I was waiting on a dip. So last June is where I was waiting on that dip. And I sold back there, but this ETF came down to 522 again during the month of August. So when we realistically talk about this year, when will you wait for a pullback? Is it going to be August? I think so. Around August, around September is where I'm looking for a pullback, and that's where I'm going to look to enter more money into this position, but also on a different brokerage. I'm going to look to enter in Taiwan Semiconductor and look to enter back into NVIDIA. Okay, so the money is going to be made if you're just disciplined, and I was very disciplined with this investment. As you can see, April drop again. We literally broke support from August 8th, 2024. Okay, $522. We go all the way down to $496. This was a scary sight for the S&P 500. Well, guess what? A few months later, we're at all-time high. This is the magic of the stock market. So a lot of people who would have bought around this time, $504, whatever, they would have been up 12, 13% on their money, which is nice. But I'm up 10% on my money by just buying December and not doing absolutely nothing. I just let this do its thing while I'm making money on the side. As I showed y'all, I made money with NVIDIA, those $421, then I made money with AMD. So while I'm making money with those, let your long terms do its thing. That is what being disciplined and being consistent means. So if I have an ETF I'm investing in, why move that, right? So know what your passive income is, know your long terms, buy low, lower average cost is very important, invest more when prices dip below your average cost. You understand the game better than anybody else doing this for years and years, trying to pick out random penny stocks to beat the market, and they get shot down every 3 months, and they go up, they go down. This is, the game is very simple. You buy stuff that is well known. S&P 500 is well known. If you would have put 10,000 in here, if I would have put 10,000 last December, right, I would have been up 10%, and that's easy money. I've done nothing. In 6 months, I'm getting 10% back on the 10,000. I would have sold that, took that money. That's a down payment, on whatever appreciating asset, or you could have took that full amount and go right back into, a stock like Taiwan Semiconductor, AMD. So knowing what to do, as y'all can see, I'm still active with these other stocks. Again, I sold this last week. If y'all can see, I sold at $57.94. What happened after that? Okay, we go up to 58.18. Big drop off. So every sell, I'm looking at the stock consistently. This is my dividend stock that I was holding. Every sell is with calculated risk. So consistency comes with calculated risk. If you can calculate your risk, and you can calculate how much profit you want from a stock. I had $77 in here. I only made like $3, but the goal here was to understand the stock more. This is another one of those stocks that is very consistent. Reality Income pays consistent dividends every single month. And look at their dividend yield real quick, 5.49%. So when we talk about beating the SPY, beating the stock market, I want to get more than 7 to 10% return every year. Well, you have to be very severe with your goals, right? If you've been holding a stock, for example, I was holding AMD for 6 to 7 months, and I got back 23%. That is a good sell. A lot of people don't catch those type of returns, trading for weeks and weeks and months,